what I can say at this point, because I just conferred with our national security staff internally, is that we just won't comment on these particular evolving events. I'm going to leave it to them in the briefings they expect to have later this morning, Bill, to really get to the bottom of this.
That was the president's counselor, Kellyanne Conway, deflecting questions about that WikiLeaks dump revealing alleged CIA hacking secrets. The FBI is now reportedly preparing to investigate how the alleged CIA documents were made public. Well, our next guest believes Russia may have played a key role. Joining me now, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, a Fox News strategic analyst.
Hi,
Good to see you today.
Good to see you.
Okay,
Always.
so what WikiLeaks is saying about this is that the source is somebody who thought public needs to know about this. We need to have the public discourse, possibly a former contractor or employee. You think that may be a red herring?
Well, sure. Why would they tell us where they're getting it and lose the source? I mean, it's just amazing to me the way this has been spun by the nutcase media on the far left and far right, that somehow the CIA is, they're spying on us. No, they're not. If the CIA had not developed these tools, it'd be dereliction of duty. Our enemies use smartphones. Our enemies watch televisions. I mean, this whole thing is just amazing to me, the way it's been orchestrated. And who profits? The Russians profit. The Russians have virtually owned WikiLeaks for years now. They control the timing of what's released. I'm sure this came from the Russians to further disrupt our government, to further destroy trust, and by the way, to harm our CIA's ability to find terrorists and other enemies of the United States.
Well, and today WikiLeaks apparently tweeting that this is just 1% of what they have. Charles Krauthammer putting it into some perspective, his opinion, his estimation on how bad this is. Take a listen, and then I'll have your response.
The real story is, I think that this is worse than Snowden. It's one thing to disclose names and places and even operations, but once you're describing the sources and methods, that's the key to what we do. And you've got to wonder, all the energy that we spend on the vetting of, I don't know, Yemeni nationals trying to get into the country, ought we not be spending a bit more of our time and effort on the vetting of contractors?
Well, and it sounds like based on what we knew last night, he thought that this was, as WikiLeaks is suggesting, from a contractor. But you are pointing the finger squarely at Russia. You say it undermines our intelligence agency, the confidence that our citizens have in our intelligence agencies. How do we get to the root of who's doing all this, to holding someone at WikiLeaks responsible? Can the U.S. government do that?
Well, I think you've raised a very, very important point. Now, first of all, as an intelligence officer, I look at patterns. And the pattern has been that Russia has been providing data to WikiLeaks going back to Edward Snowden. And the relationship is very, very tight. Now, we need to realize that in this hyper-digital age, we are at war. Not just with terrorists, but we're at war in cyberspace. And until we take it seriously, pass the correct laws, and treat cyber attackers as enemies of the United States, we're not going to make a significant progress, because right now, for most of these hackers who are involved in this, there are no penalties, and we are not responding in force or in kind or asymmetrically. So it's a free pass for the bad guys.
Well, we hear a lot of frustration on Capitol Hill whenever they try to tackle some of these things. I mean, we know that we have arcane laws on the books that still deal with landlines of telephones and, not necessarily keeping up with the technology. How do we do a better job of that?
Well, Congress has a lot on its plate, obviously. But ultimately, laws are made by Congress. And if Congress does not engage on cyber warfare, we're going to continue to lag. Now, there are brilliant people working for our government, and people in our intelligence community are patriots. They are not spying on the American people. The American people are indeed being spied on by Google, by Apple, by Facebook, by Amazon. But the U.S. government is trying to keep us safe. And the Russians are doing a marvelous job of destroying trust where it has to be. And oh, by the way, Shannon, look, this is an attack on the United States of America and our security. President Trump needs to disavow WikiLeaks.
Well, we'll see as this
Yes,
progresses and the investigations continue. Colonel Peters, good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.